Alrighty, so let's get right into it now. So we're here to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and what's been going on. In case you wonder what that picture was behind me, that was a picture of Ron Jaworski and Bon Jovi after the Philadelphia Soul won the Arena Bowl back in 2008 in the now defunct Arena Football League. So let's get right into it now. So welcome everyone that's coming in to 76ers early season discussion with Nicky Stees. If you haven't done so already, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel and drop a like if you haven't done so already. So let's get into it. So we stand here today, the Philadelphia 76ers have played 11 games thus far in the season, posing a 5-6 record. Now going into the season, I was one of those people that felt, hey, this team can make the playoffs with the talent around them. But ultimately had the combination of Doc Rivers as their head coach and not enough good depth pieces would cost them in the playoffs. And that can still very well happen. But the way the season's starting, there's some doubts that this team will even make the playoffs based off the way this season started. And we're 5-6 thus far. We started off 1-4. We had the bad performance opening against the Celtics. We lost to the Spurs. And we did win 3 straight, eventually move up to 4-4. But now, it's been a lot of struggles for this team thus far. A lot of problems right there to go over. So I'm going to go through some of the main problems individually. So let's get right to it. Let's start with that man right there, Mr. Doc Glenn Rivers as the head coach. Or Doc Rivers. Oh, boy. So we're at the point now where 76ers fans everywhere are calling for this man to be fired. I even did a short saying, a little bit torn, hear me out. Now I'm going to reiterate a point I made there. As a Sixers fan, I do not want this team to just tank and throw games. I don't want to waste time watching my team tank and trying to support a tank. At the same time, with this tank, that's the only way Doc Rivers will ever get fired. Because this team makes the playoffs. There's going to be something. Some people's going to use it as an excuse to keep Doc Rivers there as the head coach. Well, Mr. Pizza Folder on Twitch, thank you for tuning into this right here. So I am doing this on Twitch too. I have a Twitch as well, which I started recently. So if you're watching this on YouTube, also make sure to hit up my Twitch. I'll put the link to that in the comments before the end of the stream's over. And yeah, so Doc Rivers, though, you're talking about with Doc Rivers as the head coach. Hold up a second. Okay, I apologize for that. I just had to stop for a second. But as I was saying with Doc Rivers, everyone now in the Philadelphia 76ers fan base is calling for Doc Rivers to be fired. It's been going on through majority of 2022. You got DJ Eastwood, okay, run it back Philly. Mitch Kovsky, MK, the head of the Hardcore Sports Network. You got Greg Melly, who's a 76ers content creator, avid 76ers fan. And he's been on here, even changed his Twitter handle to fire Doc Rivers. You also got, Nitro Freak, who's a veteran on here, Philly sports content creator. He's been on here for the longest time creating videos. He made a video 7 months ago calling for Daryl Morey to fire Doc Rivers. The whole fan base is at that point now. We're calling for Doc Rivers to get fired. And that's the point we're at now at the 76ers with this team. Doc Rivers. He's got to go. He has got to go, period. He's clearly not doing any good for us. I'll look back. And some of his press conferences have been really bad. What I'm going to look at specifically is his press conference after the loss to the Wizards where Harden got injured. Some of the comments he made were, first he was talking about the team's performance. He was talking about how we gave him too many comfortable shots and we're not going to win that way. The way he's talking about it as if he's a fan and if he's not the coach. He's not talking about it from a coach's perspective. He sounds like a fan saying this. Dude, it's one thing for us to come on here and talk like fans because we're fans. We don't work for the organization. Okay? It's one thing for us, myself, MK, Run It Back Philly, Nitro Free. Everybody in this fan base. Desert Eagle 90 who occasionally does some Sixers content as well with his Eagles content. So many keen to building. I can go on and on and on. It's one thing for all of us. Run It Back. I said Philly Take with RB, Broads Media, all them. It's one thing for them to come on here and talk like fans because they are fans. They don't work directly for the organization. But you're talking about Doc Rivers, who's the head coach here, talking like a fan, as if you're not the head coach. And the way he was mentioned comments about James Harden, like he didn't know what was going on with Harden when he left the game. You didn't realize he was injured, Doc? Is that what you're saying? Did you imply you didn't know he got injured in that game against the Wizards? Are you kidding me, Doc Rivers? You're the head coach of this team. What are you talking about? Acting like you didn't know that James Harden was injured and you weren't paying attention, looking for an update from the doctor as quickly as possible on whether or not he was going to return? That should have been one of your main priorities right there. When one of your star players, one of your top 3 players goes out, first thing you should do is get an update from the team doctor as quickly as possible to see if he's going to return for the game or if he's going to be out for the game. And then after the game, you want to follow up with them as quickly as possible, possibly have an update by the press conference and put it out there. And if you can't get it out there, promise him you'll have an update for him by the following day. Which should be one of your main priorities to have an update on when one of your star players goes out. And Doc Rivers acted like he was clueless to the fact that Harden left with an injury. So look at that Wizards press conference of one example that shows how incompetent this man is as head coach. Because he clearly is. I mean, they got to fire him. And I'll bring up an interesting point. I was having a conversation 2 weeks ago. So going on 2 weeks ago. So it was not last Friday, but the Friday going into Halloween weekend, with a 76ers fan who said, and he believes that if Popovich were the head coach of the Sixers over the past couple years, they could have won at least a championship or 2 by now. Obviously, we won't know if that's true or not, but certainly Greg Popovich is a much better coach than Doc Rivers. And they believe that if Greg was the coach with the 76ers, the way it's constructed currently, they would have won a few championships by now, possibly. And as far as that goes with coaching right there, look, now I'm just going to use some examples off subject with the 76ers here. Give you an example of how coaching can make a team better or worse. Like, look at the NFL. Remember the Rams going like 2015, 2016 with Jeff Fisher? Remember they were a struggling team, especially 2016 before they fired him late in the season? And then they came back 2017. They didn't make any major moves during the offseason to like overhaul the roster. Nothing like huge. But all of a sudden, that change in coaching from Jeff Fisher to Sean McVay helped turn that team around. And within 2 seasons, they were going to the Super Bowl. And by year 5, they won their second Super Bowl in franchise history. And what it took for that team, well, for the Super Bowl win, it did take a few trades to help build together a Super Bowl or bust roster. But what it took for that turnaround that built up to that Super Bowl win last season for the Rams was a change at head coaching. And to take a look at another example of the NFL, Rich Bisaccia, last year as the interim head coach of the Raiders, helped lead into the playoffs. They went from him to Josh McDaniels, and it's been a significant downgrade for the Raiders. So the point is, in any sport, granted, I know it's the NFL, not the NBA, but whoever the head coach is can make a difference in terms of wins and losses, in terms of how well you do or how poorly you do. And clearly Doc Rivers here, I mean, yeah, there's clearly better head coaches out there than Doc Rivers. I would at least give Sam Cassell a chance. If you decide, if Sixers fire Doc Rivers this season, you can give Sam Cassell the rest of the year as interim coach and see what he does. And then based on his work as interim coach, then decide if he's qualified to come back going forward. So you could definitely use him this season. If you decide to get Doc Rivers out, use Sam Cassell the rest of the season. Use that as evaluation for whether or not he's the right guy to coach this team going forward. But Doc Rivers, he has got to go, period. Forget about it. Fire Doc Rivers. Yeah, I'm serious about that. And here's another main problem right here. You're going to talk about bench. The bench. The bench has not done a good job scoring throughout a majority of the season. Through most of the games, it's not looking good for the bench right now. You've had several games where the bench scored less than 10 points total. And that's one of the reasons we're losing a lot of games, because our bench guys can't score, okay? Our bench guys are garbage, okay? Guys like George Niang, Montrezl Harrell, he's okay coming off the bench, but you got to have more than that in terms of bench guys. Now, obviously, I get these are the bench guys, these aren't the starters, but your bench guys got to do something. They got to at least put up some points when the starters are out, or when they opt out temporarily. They got to be able to at least do something to keep the team in the game, and they don't really do much at all. I mean, just look at it. You got, who else? I'm going to pull up this. Let's go through a list right here of the 76ers bench guys. Let's go through the roster right now. Let's take a look, shall we? You got DeAnthony Melton. It's all right. You got Matisse Thybulle. No. Daniel House Jr. Forkin Korkmaz is trash. I've been saying it for the longest time. They need to get rid of Korkmaz. He is trash. Shake Milton's not the guy. He's replaceable. Pretty much anybody who's been here for a couple of years as a bench guy is replaceable. Matisse, Niang, this is his second season there, so I'll count him too. Korkmaz, Milton, they're all replaceable easily, okay? Because we've seen what those guys can do with the 76ers. And it doesn't put together a strong bench, now does it? Okay? Some of those guys can go, okay? So we definitely got to make some upgrades at the bench, because this current bench core is not cutting it. I mean, you see the numbers in some of these games right here. Like I've said, there's several games they're averaging under 10 points combined, the bench. And that's just absurd right there. You're not going to win games with that right there. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's ridiculous. It's something that this team needs to fix up. There's 4 guys you can replace. Okay? Do something. And I got to talk about PJ Tucker. I was not too high on this PJ Tucker signing when they brought him in. I thought 3 years and the salary they brought him in here for was too much. And so far, I'm looking like I'm being proven correct thus far. So far, it looks like I'm correct. Because let's go through. Take a look at some of his numbers here. He had 3 points against the Knicks last week in that loss. He had 5 versus the Wizards in the game where Harden got injured. He did have 13 on Halloween. He had a solid first quarter, but where was he the rest of the game in terms of offense productivity? Exactly. I mean, he had a solid first quarter, but second, third, and fourth quarter, he was basically nowhere to be found offensively. He had 5 points in the win against the Raptors and 3 against the Spurs in the second game. What about PJ Tucker? Is he done offensively to show that he's worthy of being a starter on this team? Okay, he's just looking like a has-been at this point. This is why I wasn't high on him being brought in as a starter. Okay, and now we're seeing it come into play here. So you got PJ Tucker, who at this point he's making Tobias Harris look like a decent option at this point. He really is. Because you compare Tobias' numbers to PJ's numbers, Tobias isn't that bad, actually. Let's take a look, shall we? So I'm going to pull up some of their schedules right here. So I muted my computer so that way, any ads don't play over it and don't get me a copyright strike. But let's get to it. So I'm going to do some compare and contrasting right now. PJ Tucker versus Tobias Harris to illustrate a point. Let's get to it. So first, we're going to look at different box score. Let's look at the Pacers game. PJ Tucker had 3 points, 20 minutes. Tobias Harris, 29 minutes, 18 points. Okay? So that's one game, just for example. Let's use a few more games as examples to show how PJ Tucker is making Tobias Harris look good. Like a good option in comparison. Let's go with the loss to the Wizards. Like I said, he only had 5 points there, PJ Tucker, on 28 minutes. Tobias had 16 on 34. Again, I'm not saying that Tobias Harris is a good piece, because he's not. What I'm saying, though, is you compare them. So far, if you're paying attention, you can see by comparing PJ Tucker's performance to Tobias Tobias is kind of looking like the better option. Let's go with the next game. Like I already said, he had 3 points, PJ, and that was on 25 minutes. Now, Tobias on 37 minutes had 23 points. 9 for 15 from the field, 3 for 7, 3-pointers. Oh, well, PJ was 1 for 5 from the field, 0 for 3, 3-pointers. Okay? So what you're seeing here is it's looking like, yeah, Tobias Harris, who really is not a good option for this team, who might get you some good games here or there, gets you hot here or there, who's just an average player, average role player at best, like Tobias Harris, but he's looking pretty good as an option compared to PJ Tucker when you compare and contrast. So PJ Tucker should not be starter right now. He shouldn't be. He hasn't done anything this season to prove it to me that he's worthy of starting. And if you look at his numbers and you look at his performances in any of these games, I don't see how you could say that this guy's worthy of being a starter at this point. I know some people tried to challenge that claim when I made it during the offseason, but looking at it now, yeah. I think it's looking like those of us that had our doubts of PJ Tucker are right. I mean, I was hoping I'd be wrong about it, but obviously that's not the case. So that's one problem right there. Another problem, we had that James Harden injury last week in our game against the Wizards. I alluded to that earlier with docrivers, but James Harden, he was coming in here playing like an MVP early. You look at some of his numbers early, he was dropping MVP-like numbers. He was going out there against the Celtics on opening night when we struggled. He was keeping us in that game. He had 35 points, 12 for 12 with free throws, 9-14 from the field. Against the Pacers, he had 29. He had 31 against the Bucks. James Harden was going out there playing like an MVP. In some cases, he was averaging 9 rebounds, 9+ rebounds. He had 11 assists against the Pacers as well with the 29 points. I mean, you had 17 assists against the Wizards on Halloween. I mean, James Harden was playing like an MVP until he got that injury last week, November 2nd. Now he's out for a month. So that's hurting us right there too. A guy who was going out there, one of the few guys on this team that was out there giving it his all. He played his way into shape, and he was going out there playing like he still had something. What am I looking? He was playing like his MVP, basically. He showed he still had something left in the tank. But then he gets hurt and he's out for a month. You got to wonder how we're going to do over this next month without him. He's got to hope for the best from Embiid and Maxey. And then you got to hope that when Harden returns, he's still able to play continue right where he left off. You just hope he comes back and he's still playing the same way he was before. And you hope that injury doesn't slow him down and doesn't hurt his ability to play. But that's something else we got to worry about right now, too. Right now, it's just not looking good right now. I mean, right now we still have a chance, obviously. It's only early in the season. We could still make the playoffs, possibly. There's the possibility we could make it through the play-in tournament, because that's a long ways off. So we'll have to see what we do between now and then and how things go. But right now, it's not looking pretty good thus far. And Joel Embiid, too. I mean, look, Embiid's out there. When he's playing, he's doing his best he can as always. He's out there balling out. But however, he's already missed some time already this early in the season. And you saw with some of those games he missed last week. We went 1-2 without him last week. We beat the Wizards on Halloween, but then we lost them to the rematch last week on Wednesday. Then Friday we lost to the Knicks without Joel Embiid. And then all of a sudden we had Embiid back on Monday against the Suns, and we won. Yeah, that goes to show that Joel Embiid, it's been this way for several years now, and it's not changing this year. His health and his durability is a key component to how far this team will go, okay? Joel Embiid is a key factor to that. Absolute key factor right there. Because we saw last year, when he would miss some time, the Sixers struggled without him. The past couple seasons, they have losing records both the 2020, 2021, 2021, 2022 season, they had losing records without Embiid. And he got injured both times in the playoffs, and we struggled in the second round. Embiid still went out there and played, did his best he could, but it wasn't enough to help us out. I think truly in order for us to have a shot at getting past the second round, which that's already, look at the fact, it'll be a miracle at this point if we even make it to the second round the way things are going early. But if we do get ourselves into that position where we're in the second round, the best way we have a remote chance of getting to the Eastern Conference Finals is for Joel Embiid to be healthy through the entire playoff run. That's the only way we're going to have a remote chance of that happening right there. So obviously we need Joel Embiid to stay healthy for this team to succeed in the long term. We've been that way we've been that way through his entire tenure. I mean, go back to those first two seasons, 2014, 2015, 2015, 2016. He did not play. Remember how horrible the Sixers were? And then we go ahead 2016, 2017. They were a little bit better with Embiid. That first year he played. Then the season after that, they started to finally turn things around. They had a good regular season. And here we are now, all these years later, talking about how Joel Embiid being healthy is a key component to this team. It's been that way ever since we drafted him. Look how we do without him versus how we do with him through his entire career. And the fact that he's already missed some time is worrisome. It is. So now also a look ahead. Obviously, we still got some time. We still got plenty of time left in the season. So as far as the near future, we have a game tomorrow against the Hawks at 7:30 on the road. Then we play them Saturday at home, 7:30 at the Wells Fargo Center. Then on Sunday, we play the Utah Jazz at home. Then we got to play the Milwaukee Bucks at home on Friday, November 18th. So that'll be next Friday. And then after that, we got not this Saturday, the following Saturday, the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then I'll stop right there. But obviously, we got a long road ahead. So we still have some teams in there that could give us a challenge. I mean, considering the way we struggled, I wouldn't be surprised if we lose some of those games right there. I would not be, especially to the Milwaukee Bucks or even the Minnesota Timberwolves. I would not be surprised if we were to drop some of those games, and same with the Utah Jazz, to be honest. So I would not be surprised that happens. But as far as the rest of the season goes, right now, it's not looking too bright right now. It's really not. I mean, unless they fire Doc Rivers, unless their starters stay healthy, I don't really think this team is going to go very far. I mean, it is possible as the season they could make to the play-in, possibly, as the season goes along. I mean, it's still too early to judge right now. It's too early to decide how far this team's going to go. But you guys can let me know that are tuned in the live chat how far you see this team going. But yeah, it's going to be a long road ahead for the 76ers for this season right here. And I think pretty much their best options are either to tank or to squeak into the playoffs, possibly have to play through the play-in tournament to get in. I think that's where this team's going at best. So really, I'm not going to say a whole lot else. All I want to say is to everyone that did tune in, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, do me a favor, drop a like to help out with the algorithm. Subscribe if you're new, or if you're following me on Twitch, or if you're watching this on Twitch, follow me there. And most of all, to everyone watching, have a wonderful rest of your day. Check out my channel on YouTube. I'll be uploading a lot of shorts discussing Eagles and 76ers related subjects. And yeah, that's all I really got to say for now. So until next time, signing off. And I'll see you soon.